Hi everyone. Before we dive into this story, I have a small favor to ask. Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end. Let me know in the comments which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. Now let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Myra Hart, and I'm 28 years old. 6 months ago, I flew from Los Angeles to Boston for my sister Vanessa's big day. I hadn't seen my family in years, but I thought maybe this time things would be different. Maybe this time I'd feel like I belonged. But when I arrived at the venue and gave my name at the reception desk, the staff looked at me with confusion. They flipped through the guest list once, twice, and then looked up at me with pity. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Your name isn't here." I felt my stomach drop. I called Vanessa, hoping it was just a mistake. Her voice came through the phone, sharp and cold. "You really think you'd be invited?" she sneered. My heart sank. I hung up quietly, placed a small silver box on the gift table and left. Hours later, when Vanessa opened that box in front of 400 guests, she saw what was inside. And she hasn't stopped calling me since. But I never answered. Before I tell you what was in that box, let me take you back to where it all started. To understand why that gift shook my sister's world, you need to know what it was like growing up in my family. I grew up in a grand 3-story colonial house in Beacon Hill, Boston. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family, wealthy, respected, the kind of people who summered on Martha's Vineyard and donated to the right charities. But inside those walls, there were 2 daughters and only one who mattered. Vanessa was 3 years older than me. She had the bigger bedroom, the designer clothes, the piano lessons, the dance recitals my parents actually attended. I got the hand-me-downs and the silence. My 10th birthday was when I finally understood my place in the family. I'd been counting down the days, imagining balloons, a cake with my name on it, maybe even a party like Vanessa had gotten, the one with the pony, the catered lunch, and 40 kids from her class. That morning I woke up early and ran downstairs, my heart racing with excitement. But the kitchen was empty. My mother was on the phone, planning Vanessa's upcoming cotillion. My father had already left for work. Neither of them even looked up when I walked in. "Mom," I said softly, "it's my birthday." She covered the receiver for a moment and said, "I know, sweetheart. We'll do something later." But they never did. That evening there was a knock on my bedroom door. It was Grandma Eleanor, my father's mother, holding a small wrapped box. "Happy birthday, my darling girl," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed. Inside was a camera. Not a toy but a real one, with a leather strap and a silver body that felt heavy in my small hands. "You have an artist's eye, my dear," she said, touching my cheek. "One day the world will see what I see in you." I didn't know it then, but that camera would change my entire life. And Grandma Eleanor. Oh, she knew exactly what she was planting. 8 years later, I graduated high school with a full scholarship to the Rhode Island School of Design, one of the best art programs in the country. I thought maybe finally my parents would notice me. The ceremony was on a Saturday afternoon, and I'd been selected to give a short speech about pursuing your passion. I practiced for weeks, imagining my mother's proud smile, my father's firm handshake. The morning of graduation, I came downstairs in my cap and gown. Vanessa was at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone. My parents were huddled over my father's laptop. "The ceremony starts at 2, I said, trying to sound cheerful. "We should leave by 1 to get good seats." My mother didn't even look up. "Sweetheart, something came up," she said. My father finally glanced at me. "Vanessa has a networking event with Goldman Sachs. It's a huge opportunity for her career. We can't miss it." I stood there in my graduation gown, clutching my speech notes. "It's my graduation," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My father's voice was flat. "Photography isn't a real career, Myra. Maybe you should think about business school, like your sister." Vanessa smirked but said nothing. I walked to that ceremony alone. I gave my speech to a room full of strangers. And when they called my name to receive my diploma, I looked out at the audience and saw only one familiar face. Grandma Eleanor. Front row, clapping louder than anyone. Afterward, she took my hands in hers and whispered, "Remember, sweetheart, the greatest treasures aren't always the ones people fight over. Sometimes they're the ones quietly passed on." I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. But I would. Years later, standing outside my sister's wedding with a silver box in my hands, I would understand everything. After graduation, I packed 2 suitcases and bought a one-way ticket to Los Angeles. I didn't say goodbye. There was no one to say it to. For the next 10 years, I built my life in silence. I started as an assistant to a wedding photographer, carrying equipment, adjusting lighting, learning everything I could. I saved every penny. Slowly, client by client, I built something of my own. My family never asked about my work. To them, I was still Myra, the girl who takes pictures of strangers. Vanessa called occasionally, not to check on me but to update me on her achievements. Senior marketing director at 29. Corner office. Engaged to a hedge fund manager. Every conversation was a performance, and I was her only audience. One evening, she called to brag about closing a 7-figure campaign. "What about you?" she asked, her voice dripping with condescension. "Still doing those little photo shoots?" I was sitting in my office at the time, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown LA, the one with awards on the walls and a client list that would make her head spin. I smiled to myself. "I'm doing well, Vanessa. Congratulations on your campaign." "Thanks," she said, her tone dismissive. "Mom and Dad are throwing me a celebration dinner next week. Obviously, you're not invited. It's just immediate family." Immediate family. The word stung, but I kept my voice steady. "Of course," I said. "Have a wonderful time." I hung up and looked around my office. Everlight Studios, my company. $3 million in revenue last year. Celebrity clients. Magazine features. A team of 12. Vanessa had no idea. None of them did. And for a long time I told myself I didn't care. Their approval didn't matter anymore. But then Grandma Eleanor died and everything changed. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was reviewing contracts when my phone rang. A Boston number I didn't recognize. "Miss Hart," the voice said. "This is Harrison Lawson, your grandmother's attorney. I'm sorry to inform you that Eleanor Hartwell passed away last night." The world stopped. Grandma Eleanor was 82. She'd been slowing down for years, but I always thought there'd be more time. One more visit. One more phone call. One more chance to tell her how much she meant to me. I flew to Boston that same day. The funeral was held at Trinity Church, filled with hundreds of people whose lives she'd touched. Grandma Eleanor had been a prominent arts patron, funding galleries, scholarships, and emerging artists. She believed in beauty and the people who created it. I sat in the third row alone. My parents were in the front, accepting condolences. Vanessa stood beside them in a black designer dress, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. But I noticed something. Between the sympathetic hugs, Vanessa kept glancing at my mother, and my mother kept glancing at my father. They were whispering about something. "The jewelry collection," I heard Vanessa say. "Have you talked to the lawyer about when we can?" "Not here," my mother hissed. "We'll discuss it after." I stared at Grandma Eleanor's casket while my family counted her possessions like inventory. She deserved better. We all did. After the service, as people filed out, a hand touched my shoulder. "Miss Hart," the attorney said quietly, "could you stay after? There's something your grandmother wanted you to have." My heart clenched. Of course. He led me to a small office at the back of the church. He closed the door and sat across from me, a manila envelope in his hands. "Your grandmother came to see me 2 years ago," he began. "She was very specific about her wishes. What I'm about to show you is separate from her public will." He slid the envelope across the table. Inside were 2 documents and a letter. The first document was a notarized amendment to her estate. I read the words 3 times before they sank in. The Hartwell jewelry collection, her entire collection, valued at $2.3 million, was mine. Not Vanessa's. Not my mother's. Mine. My hands trembled as I opened the letter. "My dearest Myra, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But I need you to understand why I've made this choice. Vanessa sees these pieces as trophies, status symbols to be displayed and envied. But you, my darling girl, you see their history, their meaning. You understand that beauty isn't about possession. It's about preservation. Your mother and sister will be angry. They'll say I made a mistake. But I've watched you grow into someone remarkable, even when no one else was watching. These pieces belong with someone who will honor them. They belong with you. All my love, Grandma Eleanor. I pressed the letter to my chest, tears streaming down my face. There's one more thing, Mr. Lawson said gently. Your grandmother requested that this remain confidential until you decide the right moment to disclose it. I nodded, unable to speak. I tucked the documents into my bag and walked out of that church with a secret that would sit in my heart for 6 months. I didn't know then that I'd be using it at Vanessa's wedding. 3 months after the funeral, I heard the news. Vanessa was engaged. Marcus Thornton, old money from Connecticut. His family owned half the commercial real estate in New England. It was the kind of match my parents had always dreamed of. Wealth marrying wealth, status cementing status. The wedding would be at the Grand Belmont Hotel in Boston. 400 guests. A 6-figure budget. Every detail planned to perfection. I waited for my invitation. Weeks passed. Nothing. I checked my mail every day. I refreshed my email constantly. I told myself there must be a delay. Surely my own sister wouldn't leave me out. Finally, I called my mother. Mom, I haven't received my invitation to Vanessa's wedding yet. Should I RSVP directly to her, or? There was a long pause. Myra, my mother said carefully, Vanessa wanted me to talk to you about that. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? It's just the wedding is very intimate. Vanessa felt it would be better if you didn't attend. Intimate. I almost laughed. I saw on her Instagram that there are 400 guests. Another pause. You know how you can be at these events. Awkward. We don't want anything to distract from Vanessa's day. I sat in silence, the phone pressed to my ear. I see, I said finally. Thank you for letting me know, Mom. That night, I scrolled through Vanessa's social media. Photos of her dress fitting, her engagement party, her registry at Tiffany's. Comments from hundreds of people congratulating her. 400 guests, but not a single seat for her own sister. I stared at my phone for a long time, and then I made my decision. I wasn't going to fight for a place at her wedding. I wasn't going to beg for an invitation, but I wasn't going to disappear quietly either. I booked my flight 3 days before the wedding. Los Angeles to Boston. One way. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't ask permission. I simply packed a small bag and prepared the one thing I needed to bring. A gift. It sat on my kitchen counter in a silver box with a white ribbon. Small enough to fit in my purse, light enough that you'd never guess what was inside. The night before my flight, I couldn't sleep. I kept asking myself if I was doing the right thing. Part of me wanted to stay home to protect myself from another rejection, to pretend I didn't care. But I did care. That was the problem. For 28 years, I had been invisible to my family. I had accepted their dismissal, their favoritism, their casual cruelty. I had built a life 3,000 miles away and told myself it was enough. It wasn't. I wasn't flying to Boston for revenge. I wasn't going to make a scene or ruin Vanessa's day. I just wanted to do one thing. I wanted to give my sister a wedding gift. I wanted to be seen just once as someone who existed. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I put on a simple navy dress, applied my lipstick, and looked at myself in the mirror. You can do this, I whispered. I picked up the silver box and tucked it into my bag. I didn't know what would happen when Vanessa opened it. I didn't know if it would change anything or nothing at all. But I knew I couldn't keep carrying this secret forever. Some truths need to come out. And Grandma Eleanor had trusted me to find the right moment. As my plane lifted off the runway, I realized the moment had finally come. The Grand Belmont Hotel was everything I expected and more. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, enormous floral arrangements in the lobby that probably cost more than most people's rent. A string quartet played softly near the entrance while guests in designer gowns and tailored suits streamed toward the ballroom. I stood at the edge of it all, clutching my silver box. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I smoothed my dress, modest and elegant, and walked to the reception table. 2 young women in black sat behind a guest list that looked like a small novel. Good afternoon, I said. I'm here for the Hart Thornton wedding. Of course. Name please. Myra Hart. I'm the bride's sister. The woman smiled and looked down at her list. Her finger traced the H's once, twice, a third time. The smile faded. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your name isn't on the list. Could you check again? Hart. H-A-R-T. She flipped through several pages. The other receptionist leaned over to help. "There's a Harold Hart," she said. "A Patricia Hart. A Vanessa Hart, soon to be Thornton." But she looked up at me with something like pity. "No, Myra." The ballroom doors were open behind them. I could see white tablecloths, towering centerpieces, hundreds of people laughing and drinking champagne. 400 guests. But my name wasn't on the list. The receptionist shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, is there someone I could call for you?" "No," I said quietly. "That's all right. I'll handle it myself." I stepped away from the table and pulled out my phone. My hands were steady as I dialed Vanessa's number. It rang once, twice, and then my sister answered. "Hello. Vanessa, it's Myra. My name isn't on the guest list." Silence. I waited. "I know," she finally said. "That's because you weren't invited." Even though I'd expected it, the word still landed like a slap. "I'm your sister." Vanessa laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "You really think you'd be invited? This wedding is for people who matter, Myra. Important people. Not someone who takes pictures for a living." I closed my eyes. "I flew across the country. That's your problem, not mine. I didn't ask you to come. I just wanted to give you a gift. To wish you well." "A gift?" She snorted. "What could you possibly give me that I don't already have?" "Let me guess. A homemade photo album? A coupon for a free portrait session?" I said nothing. "Let me make this clear," Vanessa continued. "No one wants you here. Not Mom, not Dad, and definitely not me. You've always been an embarrassment to this family. Go home, Myra. Go back to your little life in California and stop pretending you belong in mine." I stood in the hotel lobby, surrounded by strangers, and let her words wash over me. I could have fought back. I could have yelled, cried, begged. But I didn't. "I understand," I said. My voice was calm even. "I'll leave your gift at the reception table." "Fine. Whatever. Don't cause a scene." She hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment, then I smiled. Because I knew exactly what was in that box. And I knew exactly when she'd open it. The gift table was a masterpiece of excess. Hundreds of wrapped boxes in every size. Tiffany blue, Hermes orange, glossy white with golden bows. Crystal decanters, silver frames. Envelopes that undoubtedly contained checks with many zeros. I walked toward it slowly, my silver box in hand. It looked small among the grandeur, humble, easy to overlook. Easy. The receptionist who had turned me away watched from her post, her expression uncertain. Sympathetic, maybe, or just confused by the woman who'd been rejected but hadn't left. I found an empty spot near the edge of the table and set my gift down. I pulled a card from my purse and tucked it under the ribbon. "To Vanessa, from your sister, Myra." "Ma'am," the receptionist called softly. I turned. "Are you sure you don't want to stay? I could try to speak with the wedding coordinator, maybe." "No, thank you." I gave her a small smile. Some gifts speak louder when the giver is absent. She blinked, clearly unsure what to make of that. I took one last look at the ballroom doors. Somewhere inside, my family was celebrating. My mother was probably complimenting Vanessa's dress. My father was probably shaking hands with important people. And Vanessa was probably glowing, basking in the attention she'd always craved. None of them were thinking about me. That was fine. They would be thinking about me soon enough. I turned and walked through the lobby, past the chandeliers and the string quartet and the beautiful people in their beautiful clothes. I didn't look back. Outside, the autumn air was crisp and clean. I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, and booked the next flight to Los Angeles. As my taxi pulled away from the Grand Belmont, I smiled. The reception would start any minute now, and soon Vanessa would reach for my gift. But before I tell you what happened next, I need to take you back 2 months. Back to the moment when fate, or perhaps Grandma Eleanor's spirit, decided to play one final card. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was at my desk reviewing invoices when my assistant knocked on my door. "Myra, you have a call." Someone named Caroline Ashford. My heart skipped. Caroline Ashford was a legend in the wedding industry, owner of Ashford Events, the most exclusive wedding planning agency on the East Coast. She'd coordinated ceremonies for senators, celebrities, old money dynasties. She'd also been Grandma Eleanor's closest friend. I picked up the phone. Mrs. Ashford, it's been a long time. Too long, my dear. Her voice was warm, familiar. Eleanor spoke of you constantly, you know. She was so proud of what you've built. My throat tightened. Thank you. I'm calling because I have a bride in Boston who needs a photographer. Very particular, very demanding. She wants the best. And I told her Everlight Studios is the best. I appreciate the referral. There's one thing you should know. Caroline paused. The bride is your sister. I sat very still. Vanessa. She signed the contract last week, Caroline continued. She has no idea you own the company. She just saw our portfolio and fell in love with the work. You knew. And you still recommended us. Your grandmother would have wanted this, Myra. She always said. The truth finds its own way out. Caroline's voice softened. The contract is already signed. $15,000 non-refundable deposit. Whether you show up personally is entirely your choice. I stared out my window at the Los Angeles skyline. My sister had hired me. She'd signed a contract with the company she didn't know I owned. And she had no idea. There was something else Vanessa didn't know. 1 month before the wedding, she'd hosted a bridal brunch. I heard about it through Caroline, who heard about it through the Boston social circuit. 30 women, a private room at the Four Seasons, champagne and crustless sandwiches, and Vanessa holding court like a queen. The topic of conversation? The Hartwell jewelry collection. Grandma's pearls will be my something old, Vanessa had announced to the room. The collection is worth over $2 million. It's been in our family for generations. How wonderful that it's going to you, someone said. Well, obviously. Vanessa had smiled. I was always Grandma's favorite. She knew I would appreciate those pieces properly. Not like my sister, who wouldn't know a Cartier from a costume piece. My mother had nodded along, sipping her mimosa. Your grandmother would want you to have them, sweetheart. You were always the one she was proudest of. What neither of them knew was that the collection was already mine. It had been mine for 6 months. Vanessa had contacted Mr. Lawson multiple times, trying to claim the jewelry before the wedding. He'd politely deflected, citing ongoing estate matters. She assumed it was just paperwork delays. She'd even commissioned a custom display case for her dressing room, ready to receive her inheritance. She told Marcus's family about the collection, old money impressed by old jewels. She told her friends. She'd probably already planned which magazines to show them to. And all of it was built on a lie she didn't know she was telling. She believed she was entitled to those pieces. She believed Grandma Eleanor had loved her best. She was about to find out how wrong she was. And 400 of Boston's finest would be watching when she did. The Grand Belmont Hotel was alive with celebration. Inside the ballroom, the orchestra played softly as waiters in white gloves served the third course. 400 guests, Boston's elite, the Thornton family's extensive network, Vanessa's carefully curated collection of impressive friends, filled the room. And at the center of it all was my sister. Vanessa was radiant in her custom Vera Wang gown, diamonds sparkling at her throat and wrists. Marcus sat beside her, handsome and adoring, the perfect match for the perfect bride. My parents were at the head table, beaming with pride. My mother dabbed at her eyes, overwhelmed with emotion. My father shook hands with Marcus's father, 2 patriarchs sealing an alliance. Nobody mentioned my name. Nobody noticed the empty chair that should have been there. During the cocktail hour, Vanessa had floated through the room, accepting compliments and air kisses. When someone asked about the jewelry she was wearing, she leaned in conspiratorially. Just wait until you see Grandma's collection, she said with a smile. I'm inheriting it, you know. Over $2 million in heirloom pieces. I'll be wearing the pearls to the Met Gala next spring. Her guests oohed and awed appropriately. Vanessa basked in their admiration, completely unaware of the truth waiting for her on the gift table. As dessert was being served, the MC took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a special moment. Our beautiful bride and groom would like to open a few gifts before we cut the cake. Vanessa clapped her hands in delight. Marcus smiled beside her. A table piled high with presents waited nearby. And sitting at the edge, almost hidden among the Tiffany boxes and Hermes packages, was a small silver box with a white ribbon. Vanessa didn't notice it. Not yet. She floated toward the gift table like a queen approaching her throne. "Let's see what treasures await," she announced, and the room laughed politely. She opened the first box, a crystal vase from Baccarat. The second, a set of sterling silver candlesticks. Each gift received a gracious smile and a murmur of appreciation. Then her hand landed on the silver box. She picked it up, glanced at the card, and let out a short laugh. "Oh, look," she said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "A gift from my sister. The one who couldn't even afford to show up properly." A few guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Marcus frowned slightly. "Vanessa. Let's see what she got us," Vanessa said, still smiling for the crowd. "A homemade coupon, probably. Or one of her little photographs." She untied the ribbon, still performing for her audience. She lifted the lid. Inside was an envelope, thick and official-looking. Her smile flickered. She pulled out the papers, unfolding them slowly. The first was a legal document covered in stamps and signatures. The second was a handwritten letter on cream stationery. The third was a photograph, an elderly woman and a young girl standing outside a jewelry shop. Vanessa's eyes scanned the legal document. Her face went white, then red, then white again. "What is it?" Marcus asked, leaning over. Vanessa didn't answer. Her hands were trembling. The letter slipped from her fingers and drifted to the floor. At a nearby table, my mother noticed something was wrong. She stood up. "Vanessa, sweetheart?" Vanessa looked up from the papers, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. "This can't be real," she whispered. "This can't. Grandma loved me. She would never." She stopped. 400 guests stared at her in silence. And sitting at the bottom of that silver box was one more piece of paper she hadn't unfolded yet. My mother reached the head table in seconds. "What is it? What's wrong?" Vanessa thrust the papers at her with shaking hands. My mother's eyes scanned the document, the notarized signature, the legal seal, the words that declared the Hartwell Jewelry Collection the sole property of Myra Eleanor Hart. The color drained from her face. "This has to be a mistake." "It's not a mistake," Vanessa said, her voice cracking. "It's dated 2 years ago, before Grandma even got sick." Whispers began to ripple through the ballroom. The guests closest to the head table had seen enough. The bride's stricken expression, the papers trembling in her hands. "Isn't that the jewelry she was telling us about earlier?" someone murmured. "The $2 million collection. She said it was hers." Vanessa heard them. Her face twisted. "This is fake," she said, holding up the papers like evidence of a crime. "My sister forged this. She's always been jealous of me." My father appeared beside my mother, his expression grim. "Let me see that." He read the document. Then he picked up the letter from the floor. Grandma Eleanor's handwritten explanation. "Vanessa sees these pieces as trophies. Myra sees them as memories. I know who will honor my legacy." His jaw tightened. "Harold," my mother said, her voice thin, "tell me this isn't real." But my father didn't answer. He recognized his mother's handwriting. He knew her signature. He understood, perhaps for the first time, what Eleanor had seen in both her granddaughters, and what she'd chosen. "This can't be happening," Vanessa said, tears streaming down her face. "Not today. Not at my wedding." Marcus stood frozen beside her, watching his bride unravel in front of 400 witnesses. He looked lost. He looked like a man who was just beginning to realize he didn't know his fiancée at all. "Wait," Marcus said, his voice cutting through Vanessa's sobs. He was staring at the silver box. "There's something else in there." Vanessa looked down. At the bottom of the box, half hidden by tissue paper, was another folded document. She pulled it out with trembling fingers. It was a contract, a photography contract. The header read, "Everlight Studios Wedding Services Agreement." Vanessa's eyes dropped to the signature page. Client, Vanessa Hart. Owner/proprietor, Myra Hart. Amount paid, $15,000 non-refundable. She stared at it. No, her voice was barely a whisper. "No, no, no." "Vanessa," Marcus said, his voice quiet. "What else have you lied about?" Vanessa couldn't answer. She was too busy reaching for her phone. She needed to call me. She needed to scream at someone. She needed to fix this. But some things can't be fixed. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Because what happened next changed everything.